Okay. Okay.
Should we do any like introductory sounding things?
Like where I say, hi, I'm Ryan Parrey.
Hi, I'm Cindy Nover. I use she, her pronouns. What are your pronouns?
My pronouns are he, him pronouns.
Great. Good to see you again. From our last episode, I don't know if you've noticed this, but we have 60 views of our podcast so far.
Oh, that's great. Well, thanks, everybody. I hope you're back. Tell more friends.
Yeah.
Really, 60?
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I did offer extra credit to listen to it.
Okay. I've heard somebody texted me this morning and said, how do I find your shoes on YouTube? And I thought for about 10 minutes to realize they meant show. And I said, here's a link.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah, somebody was, I talked to one of our students / listeners, and they just said, oh, it was cool. And so good. I hope people are getting out of it what works for them.
Good. I thought you were going to say what we put in, which is
exactly
some effort.
Well, it's that like we put in that non-trivial amount of engagement. Right?
Unpaid labor.
Unpaid, and that. Yeah, we're not getting paid for this. Specifically.
Correct.
No. Here, let me do my noises. Good point, Cindy.
You don't have to do those. You could just say that I have good points after I make the good point.
But if I forget.
Okay.
But one of the things that I was thinking about, when you texted me and said, hey, how about for this week we talk about, I forget exactly what you said, but it was
disability law, the changes, because you mentioned that 504 is, at least according to what you mentioned last week, an unfunded mandate, right? So that's a component of the ADA law.
That's right.
And so maybe we should let people know that update and maybe what you know about that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, not much is what I know about it. But what I have heard is, as of last Thursday, the 504, that is the aspect of the national legislation preventing or at least curtailing discrimination in employment, in education, in federal funding receiving entities and other places. It is, as of last week, the word I was told was unfunded mandate.
Mm-hmm.
That is, from what I understand that to mean, is go and do these things, but they're not, the doing of these things won't be supported with any funds.
So let me ask you, based on your work in this area, where do you primarily see the funding? I know that's a strange question. I guess what I mean is, so for example, if 504 is what dictates that my material should be digitally accessible let's say at Eastern, right? Like public facing websites, etc., right? And I happen to know that is the case. And so if we're being told to do that, have like public facing digitally accessible materials, and now there's no money to make sure that we do that, that implies to me that someone was trying to make sure that we were doing that already. And having done research on this topic, I know that not very many people were enforcing that, although I do know that some local universities were sued for not having, from the Office of Civil Rights, Gonzaga, well, I don't need to name them all, but Gonzaga was one of them. And our name, as of the time that I was doing research on this, which was in 2023, was not among the list of universities that was being sued. And so do you see in your work, and maybe I'm asking a weird question, maybe everything that SASS does or our disability office does is funded by that? Like maybe employees can't work in that office if we didn't get money from the 504 people. But I mean, ever since we were told to make everything digitally accessible, no one has come to check on that. I can tell you that for sure.
Right.
And those of us who are trying to do it on, because we want to do it, are not being checked on. We're just doing it because we want to do it. And so where did you see the funding? Is it just in the establishment of programs like that on campuses?
I only saw the funding second or third hand.
Right.
I only heard about it. Yeah, I'm tangentially involved with this research group that is researches at the intersection of Latinx identity and disability in a major Midwestern city called Chicago. Didn't know if I wanted to say the name. And we were all saying, what's happening with you and your work and this research at this intersection? And she was explaining, well, number one, the feeling that they were getting was you're not supposed to research the identities of Latin or Latinx people anymore. And also, you're not really supposed to research disability stuff, including access. If anybody, and now I'm reading between the lines, and if there's any amount of funding to make you want to do that, that's gone now. Mm. So if you want to do it because that's what you really love and care about, go to town. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I didn't see that funding, but based on the way this person was speaking, that was just the one step away from actively don't do it.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering now that you're talking, like when I talk about the Office of Civil Rights, which can be abbreviated OCR, which should not be confused with optical character recognition, an aspect of UDL that we may talk about on this podcast. But the thing I'm talking about right now is the Office of Civil Rights. Maybe some of their funding comes from 504, right? So that it could be that the enforcers that I'm familiar with won't work there anymore if this is unfunded. So that's one clear way that I could see, like, yeah, no one's there to give a report to if you have had your rights violated.
Exactly. And I think, and there's no one's ever going to follow up on it.
Right.
And there's no paper to print the report.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know the degree to which that's all part of a larger plan or simply just the way of things.
Yeah, there's certainly an effect. I'm not on social media, and when you texted me to say that 504 was now an unfunded mandate, you said, like, social media is kind of blowing up about it, and I just sort of pictured you probably have a lot of disability-related social media things that come through to you, and so it's kind of like, oh, wow, so that person... Meaning, what I was thinking was you and the other people that are posting things and whatever are feeling some effect, regardless of whether anybody can actually say, okay, I personally received $16 over the course of my life or since 1991 or whenever. No, I think Section 504 was out in 1973. I think it predated ADA.
It did, by
quite a lot. Yeah.
By a generation.
Yeah, exactly. And so, maybe whether or not someone can say how they directly benefited, just knowing that this is not something that's being supported financially anymore has an emotional effect. Obviously, the people that were posting on your feed must have been saying something. Was it more or less sad or angry or what?
Yeah, I think both. I know after that conversation, I don't know if I sent it to you. I will try to find it, but also,
if it's a meme or anything from the internet, don't try that. But we'll see. We'll see if we can remain friends and co-hosts.
I made this.
Oh, it's a tombstone.
You saw
that's the only way I find anything acceptable for someone to send to me on the internet is if they've made it.
Oh, good. I did. Yes, I sent you my little.
You did.
I made a little AI generated picture of a tombstone with an access symbol, and it's an ADA 1992
question mark. Right? Yeah.
I made it that day just because I felt like I had to do some outlet for those thoughts and feelings.
What kind of feelings did you have?
I mean, I think the idea that, like, I grew up, I was born in 1978, so I grew up with the ADA. When I went to school, I didn't have the language for access or accommodations or inclusion, but I knew if and when these things weren't happening. And then when I was able to realize, oh, there's rules and there's practices and there's things that you can do so that me and other people with disabilities can learn better. And it's not just, hey, isn't that a nice teacher being nice? It's actually the law. I didn't realize it because, I didn't, but it felt good. It felt like, oh, if I'm upset about something, I don't have a bad attitude.
Right. It's like a real thing.
It's a real thing that other people say that's actually addressed in a law by name saying, don't be like this.
I am so glad you brought this up because that's the thing that I learned at this conference in Denver. The most important takeaway that I learned was I learned a lot of things, and you and I could talk about those later, but it specifically it's on what you just said. You said being a kid or, growing up and knowing that something existed that was for me or that had to do with disabilities just made me feel good, right? Like, and so when I was attending one particular workshop by a couple of guys from the University of Oklahoma, whose names are Anthony Natale and Ricky Munoz, they were studying a sense of belonging. And they said that hitherto, or this is a social work conference on disability, people hadn't exactly defined people couldn't actually measure belonging, a sense of belonging, right? And so, right. And so these people put together some ideas like if you had inclusion plus diversity plus equity plus accessibility, then that can equal belonging, right? So this is more like a theoretic, like a framework to use, right? And so then they went around interviewing, and they gave a survey to a whole bunch of people, faculty, students. There was like thousands of people involved in the, And so and they even looked at specific classroom practices, like if case studies were not inclusive that were given out in the classroom, or the class missed diverse perspectives. There was no classroom inclusion policy on the syllabus. The examples lack intersection. So they looked at all these things that could make you feel a sense of belonging, right? And then they had a hypothesis that a higher awareness of policies, to your point, just knowing that a law existed, would result in people feeling more belonging, according to how they had defined belonging, right? And what they found was that was correct, and that basically the clearest predictor of a feeling of belonging is just knowing that policies exist at all, even if you don't know what's in them or how they have been enforced, right? Or will be enforced. Specifically, I was just giving you a little bit of list of things that they were looking at. Accessibility for people with disabilities was one of the things that just knowing that there were policies for people with disabilities that exist was a predictor of people feeling belonging, right? And these people that were surveyed weren't all people with disabilities, which is like people, right? Sure. Like there was an unexpected result, which was that gender neutral bathrooms were negatively associated with belonging. And so then they had some sort of ideas about policy implications that we should prioritize accessibility and certainly let people know that policies exist about disability, right, or accessibility. And then I know it's off topic, but the gender neutral bathroom idea, they just said you want to have more nuanced and evidence-based policy design. Don't just put up a sign and then assume that everybody feels included because the bathroom they can go into that bathroom, right?
I mean, the same is true with accessibility signs outside of restrooms. That doesn't mean the bathroom is accessible.
Exactly. However, now, to be clear, I don't want to act like this is some groundbreaking thing that we can use in all areas, but I raised my hand and I said, sir, are you just saying that if I just tell people that we have a lot of policies, that makes them feel more belonging? And they said, yup. And I said, well, now that's kind of a binary. Did you go into any detail about what policies and how they were being enforced? And they said, excuse me, that's a lot more research than we've done, just hold on. Like slow your roll. They said we have some other, research plan, but basically, but in fact, they said they were going to publish something like 23 more papers on some of the things that they found. So basically, according to this survey, it's exactly what you just said, that just knowing that something existed, even if I was too young to know what it was, or I didn't really understand the nuances, was really helpful. So I asked them after the thing, I was like, so, are you just literally saying that I should just blow up the font on the policies that we have, put up a sign that's like, did you know we have policies? And it was kind of like, to increase a sense of belonging. You're not going to achieve everything. You're not going to make everybody just be happy all the time and get A's or whatever.
Well, I would imagine, right, there would be the difference between the sense of I haven't read it. Sure. But the sense of belonging versus you feel like you belong and you feel like you belong.
I think that's probably
and
right.
That's fine.
And that's right. This is what they could measure. And even this was kind of a little bit of a stretch. They knew that we'd been talking about belonging for a long time, especially in those letters about DEI, EB and all that stuff. But people hadn't measured it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. As far as to the point of this episode, what if no one's watching anymore? What if no one's funding and, overseeing anything anymore? What if no one's funding anything anymore? Could we just string people along a little bit? And by people, I mean us too, by just mentioning that there are a lot of policies.
There's a lot of policies out there.
I don't know if you've heard, but there's a lot of policies, big ones.
The best policies.
So good.
Well, I don't know. I just covered my mouth. I don't know, right? I've been thinking about that. I don't know the old days, but do we find ourselves there? You know, we have friends and colleagues in gender studies and all kinds of all the studies programs. And are we just like 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s people, or excuse me, before then, who sure wish there were policies and sure wish the policies went this way rather than that way? And, you know, yes, wait, what are the old slogans?
Slogans full up.
Hang in there.
Oh,
darlin.
That's not a slogan. Are you talking about like a poster or a mug that you use at work? That usually has a cat that says hang in there.
Look, all I know is...
Is all you know? That's what we're about to hear.
Crip Campus. Hang in there, darling.
You're talking about our tagline, our famous tagline. Hang in there, darling. Yeah, it's like not even a G on the end. It's just got an apostrophe. Yep.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Maybe we'll get less sued from the makers of the thing that we took the name from.
That's right.
If we have a tagline. Because you don't even have a tagline. Yeah.
No. Well, but I mean, that's like, look at the folks in that famous documentary from a few years ago. Those are all disabled kids growing up in a world with few to none policies, legislations, and forget it, enforcement in place. And like, we got to imagine that they were just a bunch of kids wanting to have fun, and maybe they got upset individually or in a group and said, gee, I wish we could take the bus to each other's house after camp is over. But they're not accessible. And are we now just left to like know how good we had it and also how bad it's gotten if we think contemporary policy is bad or disadvantageous?
Well, what are some things that you think the university or you personally in your classes could do if we don't have the safety net that we may have become accustomed to having? I mean, we're trying to name ways in which we might personally be impacted, but I mean, some of what we were talking about before this episode is what could we do to create a sense, to make things accessible or universally designed or welcoming or whatever for students in the absence of this kind of oversight or these policies? Have you thought about, I mean, if we really are the ones that are going to have to like do something now to support the students and in some future world of...
Well, I think you and me, are the kinds of, and certainly people we know, are the kinds of people who were already doing it not because there was a policy, but because it was a good way to do it. Universal design for learning principles are really great when you're trying to teach people things, even if we didn't have a policy saying you should implement them.
Okay. And how can you how can you scale that? So you're good and I'm good, but you know, I talk to people in my department or other areas.
And yeah, that's the annoying thing, right? Because then do we say, well, this is now the Office of Communal Innovations.
Okay.
And belonging. And is the B word an official word in some organization or office now?
Yeah.
It is. It is.
As a matter of fact, my colleague of mine who may be listening now helped this university change the letters around during some previous activities to Be Jedi, which is a Star Wars reference that had to do with belonging and then like justice, equity, diversity, inclusion. Yeah,
I've not heard about it.
I don't know if it's still the acronym, but that was one of my friend's biggest coups here. It was just like, you know how other people have like EDIB or whatever, right? Like we've got Be Jedi, but since you've never heard it, it sounds like it didn't really take off.
Well, you know what? To the person that came up with that slogan, hang in there, darling.
Well, you know what the music means.
Well, I don't know. Sorry, I just had class 10 minutes ago. I'm so tired. But no, it's so frustrating. Like Sarah Ahmed talks about how a lot of times policy can just effectively be smokescreen.
Sure.
We're not going to change practice, but we've got a policy for it.
Yeah.
Well, now...
We don't even have that.
We don't even have that. So what does happen, right?
Well, okay. So, I mean, I know a lot of policy people, and certainly when I'm trying to solve anything using any other strategies like compassion, interpersonal communication. The policy people are like, not just we do the policy and then everyone reacts accordingly. And then you can solve whatever the problems are that you think you can solve with your weird interpersonal peace loving self. But then there are a lot of people from diverse backgrounds who are so sick of us just saying, oh, well, we got a diversity sticker. We have an ally flag. We have a, whatever,
Yep,
like kind of everything. Exactly. And so those people are put off at times by, institutional claims about what we're working on, or that we, especially like a committee for advancing diversity at the universe. As a former co-chair of the President's Committee on Diversity for 8 years, I could tell you that people don't think that does anything, and it is actually worse than just not having a group like that, because and it's embarrassing if you're on that group and then you still see the kinds of structural isms that we see, like
and
why do you want to look in the
does.
mirror? Yeah, exactly, right. Like, and so maybe we're talking about how policy comes off differently to different people. Maybe people who are raised in an environment where structure is important and they like Robert's rules in a meeting are going to really enjoy hearing that there are policies. And maybe people who feel kind of marginalized because they're not so used to that, kind of structure that we might have in meetings or whatever are not going to be comforted by that. Certainly this study didn't distinguish what kind of people felt belonging.
Right. I mean, it would be interesting to know, did they talk to faculty or did they talk to students?
Both.
They really did.
And staff.
They really did. I'll have to read that. Sounds interesting. I'm reminded of two things. The first is an episode of Futurama.
Okay.
Where it's all about bureaucracy.
Okay.
And they go to the big highest bureaucrat and they say, we want something to change. And the bureaucracy, it's too bad. The rules have to change. And the wizened old man, he says, I was on the committee to determine what color to make the new edition of the rule book. We decided to keep it gray. And there's those people, but you know what? We did it and we voted and
it's just gray.
Bureaucracy and we got the rule. So I think we have that, bureaucracy loving, policy loving. And I think it's fair to say, well, look, we used to have a policy that some people would say didn't go. I mean, whatever that policy is, somebody said that doesn't go far enough and that doesn't make real tangible difference. So we might say, okay, now we have other policies.
Right.
Do they make a real tangible difference? I don't know. I think because for some things, right, there's so much loud voices about things. So now I'm reminded of a former student years ago. We were talking about universal design for learning principles. And I had asked them, recall a time in high school or college and a time or an assignment or whatever that made you feel like you did or didn't belong, that made you feel stressed, uncomfortable, or comfortable.
Okay.
And I let them work in small groups, and then I wandered around, and I came over, and I heard one of the students was using what I recognize as being a pretty outdated expression for certain kinds of people that until recently had some legal protections against their discrimination.
Okay.
And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? And they said, well, I had a teacher that made us watch these particular kinds of performances on a stage and videos of that. And I said, oh, that's interesting. And I kind of got, and I understand in this particular class why you would watch that. I see the pedagogical value of it.
And by the way, Ryan's talking about drag shows. I think letting our listeners guess about what this onstage performance is could be more confusing. Yeah, right. So, you don't need to provide any more, details about the person or anything like that. But that part, well, and I actually think it's probably our responsibility as like social justice advocates until something is illegal, and our state has built-in protections, that are higher than what we might find at the federal government. I don't think we should. In fact, somebody was a guest speaker in my class yesterday saying one of the most dangerous things you can do is self-censor in anticipation of somebody censoring you, right? We're talking about something that, yes, in Idaho was voted to be like illegal, drag performances, but in Washington, we're still doing drag, and so that's what Ryan's talking about in this part of the story.
So saying from Washington, right, the students are being asked, please critically look at these drag performances for, I don't know, whatever content from basic lower level intro class about something. And the student was saying, oh, and I was really uncomfortable and I don't like it. And I have opinions and I said, okay, well, let's take it away from how you feel. And let's make it about a universal design thing. Let's make it about, is there anything about that assignment that is making you unable to do it? Or does it just make you feel funny?
Okay.
And, we talked about it. And I don't know, I've been thinking it's a possible workaround for that, right? It might have been something like, well, hey, I want to make sure that you can demonstrate that you understand how to critically examine from this or that lens anything.
Sure.
So, hey, let's see if we can't brainstorm and come up with another comparative thing. Just to be clear, this was a while ago. So they had to compare drag shows to professional wrestling.
Okay.
And they were like, that's ridiculous. They couldn't be more, the student was saying, that's ridiculous. They couldn't be more different.
Well, they're almost the exact same thing. Everyone's wearing costumes and sort of performing their gender.
This is what I said.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I said, well, who do you like better, The Rock or Dwayne Johnson?
Good question, actually. Now that Dwayne Johnson has made an acting career versus some of the other, although there was a politician who was a fan. Yeah, right. Good question. Uh-huh.
That's right. Or Hulk Hogan.
Okay.
What's the difference between Hulk Hogan and Terry? I forget his actual last name, but one is a preferred name, and one is a name assigned at birth or legally in the law, right?
Yeah.
Given. And I think the student just said, oh, and if I was your teacher, we'd be done now. Go write that down.
Right.
But it really made me think in the context of all the policy and stuff around diversity and equity, in the other words, inclusion. And
one assumes Jedi, I think was
the Jedi, right? Like it doesn't, I don't know. Does being able to succeed or being able to participate successfully to the best of your ability in a class or in college or in a job, what is the relationship with that, between that and this sense of belonging? Can you feel like you belong, but also feel like you aren't particularly welcomed?
And that's why I kind of like that some of the areas that these researchers examined included, case studies that you might be presented with in class, lack of diverse faculty, lack of bias going uninterrupted, stuff like that, right? Because, they're trying to measure belonging, but even if you had all those things on lock, like everything looked good with those kinds of things, one could still feel like they didn't belong, like individually, right? And that assignment that you're talking about, I'm now kind of curious about what the point was, because it upsets someone. Yeah. And so the thing I thought was like, how they make people swing with two bats to like practice for using one bat later on in like a sport of some kind that involves bats. Yeah, I want to assume bats that are like the long thing that you can hit someone with, not the ones that fly through the air. No, they're like superpowers or whatever, which I assume they have. So maybe just having somebody think about drag, which might put you in some kind of an unsafe psychological state, and then have to figure out like some components of the assignment, was like having the student like heighten their whatever, but still be able to do the thing, like think critically or whatever, right? But in my opinion, because that did activate the student and energize them a little bit, although I hope that most people can stomach the idea that there are drag performers and that that's a part of our culture and whatever, it does make me wonder if that assignment needed to have that part if it was going to activate someone. In different disciplines, the answer to that might be yes or no. In mine, it's kind of like, you have to understand that the world has a bunch of stuff in it. And I'm going to show you that in my class because I teach in social work, but not everyone
must. That's where we'll do something else.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, again, to be fair, it was a while ago, and it was definitely this one person's perspective who started off saying, I had strong feelings about this and didn't like it. So any interpretation was their interpretation.
Yeah.
The instructor wasn't there to say, well, you see, the point of the assignment was. And another student wasn't there to say, oh, come on. It was only, you had to write 2 paragraphs. You had to watch for 5 minutes. There were everyone had their clothes on. I don't know, But I think, you know what I'm going to say, but also.
Hang in there, darling. No, that's it. It's not the bromide that you think it is, the salve that you are aiming for. It makes me feel...
They're there?
My grandpa used to say, ease up, Dolly, a lot to my grandma. Yeah, it meant calm down, and she hated it. And I'm her namesake. My middle name is her first name. And so, yeah, so ease up, Dolly is a great thing you can throw out if you'd like me to become...
enraged.
If you'd like me to, I keep going around claiming I'm a pacifist, but if you'd like to see the other side of that, just tell me to ease up, Dolly. Actually, if you said it, I think I would enjoy that because he's calling people Dolly and Sarah.
I've been watching a lot of Freddie Mercury videos lately.
Why don't you invite me over? This sounds great.
Okay, I want to actively pursue calling people darlin and sweetheart. Not sweetheart, I'm sorry. What did he always say? Darlin.
Okay. And then you're going to start calling people that? Can I recommend that you don't? It sounds like harassment. Like, who are the people that you're saying this to? Servers, students?
No, I mean, there's a reason that this also is a really outdated way of speaking to somebody.
He died,
And he died.
It may be because of the use of darling, the excessive use of darling.
You're not wrong.
Pass. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But, okay, well, sugar plum?
That's our code. That's our safe word section of the podcast, as you can hear. So anytime anyone says sugar plum, that I think Pee Wee Herman had a word of the day, or a secret word, and so everybody just has to go whenever somebody says it, right? So sugar plum is that.
Well, if we get more, we got to watch out because there's 60 people out there, hopefully, who are gonna know.
We're gonna be shouting whenever we say that.
They come by.
That's great. I hope that.
But wait, we were actually talking about something.
Probably about disability. That's the theme of the show. Well, my original question vis-a-vis like the link between the law and what we're talking about in our class is how or will we do things to pick up the slack from, now we may be entering into a future where things aren't legally protected for our students or other faculty or whoever. Are there things that we can do, to ensure that? So we talked about a little bit of universal design kind of stuff, but I know one of the questions you were thinking about before this podcast was about outreach, orientation, things that take place at the university outside of our class. Are there things that we can do to accommodate? I use the word accommodate, but just as a verb, like students with disabilities when we're all on our own. It's like the Wild West without legal protections.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would think, right? I guess what I hope I do, the kind of person I want to be in a year or 6 months or less is, being in the classroom, being really explicit about here's what we're doing. Here's why we're doing it. Ready? We're going to do it. Okay, we've done it. And hopefully either we've thought in advance or in the moment, like with your example, right? I'm saying, okay, what can I do to make this achievable for you? Do I have to act it out? I'm acting it out. And then outside of the classroom, I think with each other, I don't know about you, but it's all very scary. And I don't know who is it okay to talk to about all this stuff with, and to coalition, not just build, but maintain. And I was at a meeting recently where a bunch of marginal of folks on campus who teach in particular areas were talking about how they are feeling and doing and in the world and in the university. And none of them, I don't want to speak for them, but I did say, like, look, my job is not as secure, at least in writing, as other people's jobs. And I I don't have colleagues. I'm the only person who teaches in disability studies right now. I can't ask my friend and colleague of many years in disability studies here at EWU.
Right.
What are we going to do?
Right.
I can ask you.
Right.
We can figure things out. But I would guess, right? That is what I would love to see a lot more of, is that. I mean, it's nothing new. You know what I mean? Obviously, I'm not saying, guess what? People are overworked, under-resourced.
Sure.
But I guess that's sort of what I'd want this to be too, right? Is that,
Sure.
well, hey, we're here with each other, and we're here for each other, maybe. And the audience too. You know, I don't know what that means or looks like, but.
Well, we've talked before about like when one of our sessions of academic ableism, I think I was at a coffee shop and I was kind of distracted. We were clearing my Zoom and I was asking people, well, maybe it was the last episode or the last meeting. What kinds of things will you personally do after this, you know, to take this kind of stuff forward? And one of the things that I, thought I might do, and I can't remember if I have, is when people complain about something that's accessible, like, oh, let's meet on Zoom, where people can get a transcript, where people can turn up the volume as loud as they want, where people can do a lot of things, and then other people are like, well, remember COVID? That was terrible. I never want to do anything on Zoom again. That I would speak up and just say in a scenario like that either we should have a hybrid format or we should at least acknowledge that going around saying that something that's more accessible is bad is kind of not including everyone, right? Like, or I could even use stronger language than that, right?
I don't like the way I sound on a microphone, so I'll just raise my voice.
Yeah, weird stuff like that, as you know, right? And so, the number of times that I hear that at a conference or whatever, it's unbelievable. I mean, I just got back and maybe from a conference and I may have seen 30 sessions or whatever, and probably a third of them, and it's a conference about disability, have those people saying, oh, well, I'm just going to shout, don't worry about the mic. So anyway, I think saying something is a way to fight against stuff because honestly, right now, people aren't as passionate about accessibility, at least in the classroom, as you and I are anyway. And there were already policies and there was theoretically already oversight and that people may or may not have known about that. And they don't seem to be as interested in it. I don't want to say they don't care. And so maybe if we're actually going around being like, oh, have you thought about how, something that can generate a transcript is more accessible than something that can't? Like your memory when someone's just talking, right? Like, and I guess if somebody wants to be like, get out of here, you cider with people with disabilities, then whatever.
No flame.
But I don't want to be talking. I'm not friends with that person after that comment right now anyway. So like, give me your best shot, right? And so, it may be that already this was our approach and we just need to strengthen it now, right? Like in being more vocal. And I think if I told someone, you're arguing for a format that is less accessible. Somebody could benefit from having a transcript of this meeting right now, or a recording of this meeting right now, or an AI companion, summary. I think most professors would be like, oh, actually, I hadn't thought about that or whatever. I don't think most of them are going to say like, well, I guess somebody ought to just memorize the talk or whatever, right?
Look, if you can't be in the meeting, then you shouldn't be in the meeting.
And I am not above shaming people. I'm just giving kind of a stern look. We said in episode 1 that teacher called you into question by saying, I bet you do benefit from the accessibility kinds of things, right? So that's the look I'm going to give to anybody who's sort of like, well, whatever, they should just, show up at the meeting. Even if you showed up at the meeting, it would still be good to have a transcript, right? Like it may be that's what we have to do in times like this is speak up more.
I suppose. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't working to inspire people to do accessible things before. Now, you and I know who the people are that come to accessibility things and who care about accessibility things, right?
It's the same dozen or whatever. And that's great. Well, I just found, and I think, the other thing is, I guess this isn't the other thing. This is the same thing. So we allowed to talk about, like,
what does it rhyme
departments?
with? Okay.
Was it what?
What does it rhyme with?
Oh.
Myology?
Anthropology.
Okay, good.
I had a friend, I like to think friend and colleague from anthropology come and guest lecture about their work in a class the other week. And they just randomly, I didn't expect it, turned on live captioning on their PowerPoint. And I said, wait, stop. What are you doing? You can do that?
You didn't know that Google Slides had live captioning?
Oh. No. And he's like, Yeah, it's really easy.
You literally just push this button up the bottom. Yeah.
And I did now I can't do that because I can't find the button with the mouse.
Someone
But
could help.
I have a wireless mouse for students to use.
Okay.
And I've done it for about 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already, when it's not on, I've had people say, "Can you put that on?"
Great.
And I love it.
Yeah.
It's great. And it's easy as anything.
Yeah.
And it's just that little. And so I guess, what does that mean? I wouldn't have heard that if he hadn't come in.
I see what you're doing.
So
Yeah.
I think intentionally, we literally met here in the faculty commons. It was Andrew Mitchell from anthropology.
Now we're just saying people's names.
Like,
No, it was actually a good. Yeah, you're calling them. But maybe we should ask this person before we put it on YouTube if we can use their name. Yeah.
So yes, it was a colleague in anthropology,
That's great.
and he did it, and it was, and I think as we invited each other to guest lecture in each other's classes, I think the thinking was, hey, we don't know each other. I don't know what you do, but it sounds interesting, and let's actively making connections.
I saw that relationship start. It was over here during ice cream social. But
Jim, you were right there too.
I was in between the two.
You were. That's right. And it was great. And I was like, oh, are we friends now? I don't know. Are we his collegial colleagues? Sure. Great. And I think when you're scared, the last thing you do is reach out. And I know that sounds touchy-feely, and then I don't know, like a therapy session, but
that's a plug for therapy. If you can afford it, you should probably go.
And that's good.
Yeah, that's it.
No,
yeah.
and here I am facing, that there we have that cultural weirdness around therapy, which is great. So
yeah, I'm wondering if the making connections with people and just go, for example, I got this job because I went in and told them what my qualifications were as far as education goes, but also said, I'm obsessed with accessibility, and I now would like to use the mouthpiece that I have of Faculty Commons to get more people to do more accessible stuff. And so, like, unabashedly, I have an agenda, and I'm going to go do that if you give me this job, right? And then they gave me the job. And then
I remember you saying.
Yeah. So I'm the assessment coordinator for my department. I have other roles that are just outside my faculty, roles. And with all of those, I've thought about, my sabbatical was about disability. I've thought about how I can use just my own actual work, like, to go around and talk to. So if that means assuming a position that I might not want the other stuff, I might not want everything about that position, but if I thought I could help promote accessibility, great. Or if I would actually have more, it's not respect, but, as the assessment coordinator in my department, if I tell you that I need to talk to you about something that you're doing, you sort of have to talk to me about that, right? And so any kind of whether it's a forced friendship or relationship or a real one, I think as long as people are willing to listen to you as a person, because they don't see you as like super political. I don't mean political as far as like outside of the university.
But politically advantageous. Oh, you're the boss. Or you're going to be the dean in 2 years.
But there are a lot of people who I think have an attitude, and it makes, I think, people not want to hang around with them, right? Like what I mean is if people see you as overly political, then they're like, oh, I don't even know what I'm going to say around this person, because they're always fighting various meetings and whatever. And so I just try, if I want my objectives, such as promoting accessibility, to be accomplished, I try to put myself in a lot of positions where I might be able to have influence over that. And I try to be as neutral as possible. I'm so neutral that every year, 3 to 5 people who I've known for 5 years will ask me who I am. And are kind of, it's happened to me twice this year already. And so then I'm just like, that's really weird. Like we did a presentation together, like, 8 years ago or whatever. Right. But it means that they don't think of me as being, some certain whatever, like I'm a threat.
This one.
Yeah, exactly. So I think of myself as like an accessibility shapeshifter or whatever. Right. And so another thing I think we can do is not necessarily like hold positions of power, but just ask ourselves, how do the positions that are open to us, how can we use them to our advantage, right? Like, so now I'm speaking to you about some assessment stuff. I might mention like, hey, I took a look at your syllabus because it was one of the master syllabi that you made, and there's not headings on it and the table's not accessible. I've done that several times with people, which has nothing to do with the conversation I was having about assessment. And then they're like, oh, really? I don't actually know how to make a table accessible. Will you show me how to do it or whatever, right? So I think that's another thing that we can do is just take advantage of the times that we're already interacting with somebody.
Yeah, and I think, right. And, well, and to go back to that student from years ago, right? The point wasn't to have a conversation about drag shows.
Right.
But could we?
Right.
Could. But yeah, were you telling me/us about your conference? Would you
Sure.
like the one or two like big highlights or whatever you feel?
Yeah, because it was about disability. They had thousands of sessions about disability. And the ones that I attended, one of them was about AI and aesthetic bias. And that AI, when it's creating images or looking through images, is not going to include somebody that has what is a difference that might be the standard way of looking. I don't know what that means, but I know when Jim tried to make a title slide with our images on it, I was like, why are my lips all sexy, right? Like, and then I was like, can you like tone that down a little bit, right? And that might be just because whatever AI thinks would be a good looking person, especially if you have short hair, let's just make her lips look a little more full at least, right? Like, so I tried to tone that down.
I don't know what it was trying to do with my little picture, always on her video that goes like this, because I don't know. I feel like I'm like a Gollum looking.
Okay, so maybe it got some prompts about like, lady who's director and guy who does disability studies, and that's what it, came up with. But anyway, this one was about AI and its role in not making inclusive images or images that would represent like a broad range of appearances, right? Then I attended a talk about how people in Israel are intentionally manufacturing disability with people in Palestine, and that 10 children have a limb amputated every day, I think they said, every some office. So like every month or week or day, right? And that is not just a byproduct of the attacks, but that it is an intentional way to create a system of dependency and disability. I mean, so that people can't maybe fight later and, if you attack them again. And so that was kind of an international focus. That was really interesting. Yeah. Then I attended something called Disabled to the Front, Punk Bands Fighting for Disabled People's Right to Party. And this one was about a woman who lives in Nashville who has been working with the Mayor's Office of Nightlife, because there's a special Mayor's Office of Nightlife in Nashville.
Nashville.
Yeah, and exactly. And so she's been trying to advocate to make sure that, because bars, they're usually kind of rickety places, it's dark and whatever, so they're not very accessible, and they don't publish accessibility stuff on their websites, not like restaurants sometimes do, right? And so, she talked about that, and she talked about the dignity of risk, maybe yes, if you go out and you're going to drink and you have a disability and you have limited transportation options and you have maybe you live at a care home where you have to be back by midnight, there are all kinds of stuff, many, many reasons why disabled people may not want to risk nightlife, bathroom access, all this stuff, right? But she talked about what she's been doing to improve that, along with the Mayor's Office of Nightlife in her town.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I'll just talk about a couple more things that I saw. We should probably wrap up our episode here. I attended a couple more things about AI. We learned the one about belonging. I learned about voters with psychiatric disabilities and how in many states, like 30 states, if you have a psychiatric disability, you can't vote. Like you have a legal guardian. Washington State is one of those states where if you have a legal guardian, then you can't vote, but not just any psychiatric disability. And then there's some states where that's not the case. Then I heard about disability, mental health, and criminalization in marginalized communities, help seeking and reporting by people with disabilities who are victims of violent crime, like how often they're seeking help, and how we can use a framework for domestic violence in terms of how you can interview someone who's been a victim of sexual assault or domestic violence in different ways to create different answers, right? So if cops just show up and they're just all kind of not sensitive to the kinds of questions they may want to ask, you're probably not going to answer their questions. And so this presenter tried to apply a similar framework to interviewing people with disabilities who've been the victims of crime, with a sensitivity to what kinds of things they might feel more vulnerable about or whatever. So, I tried to see things all across the spectrum here as far as different areas. I think conferences are ableist in a lot of ways. You have to get up and get to all these places within 10 minutes, and it's really confusing and all this stuff. And they did a pretty good job of having, a dark room where people could, sensory overload could go and things like that. But the sessions were 15 minutes apart, and the layout at the Sheraton downtown in Denver was there were some things
Oh,
that
I've been-
there were some things that you have to cross a street using a covered walkway to get to some of the sessions in one area and some on the other area. I mean, yeah, and the elevator is where it is. So, I mean, even somebody who was more, I mean, I had to ask people many times, like, where am I and where's this? And I consider myself to be fairly able to navigate such things, right? So
you travel.
yeah, exactly. I travel by myself too. Like, so that's usually, pretty easy. But anyway, so
That sounds really great. Were those the best ones?
those are the ones that I attended. One, I can't speak about the other ones, but just the schedule. And I found on the last day, my colleague, who is my chair of my department, was just eating some popcorn on a bench. And I was walking by. I didn't even know she was at the conference. And I was also eating the same popcorn as I walked by, and she called my name. And I was like, "You're here?" And she said, "Yeah, I've been here for 5 days." And I was like, "Oh, I totally didn't notice that." So I could ask her what she attended, because clearly it wasn't any of the things that I attended. I'll probably bring some popcorn now that
Right. Now you have to.
Yeah. Well,
That sounds fun.
you know what the music means.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else we want to say? It's 4:45.
45.
Yeah. It's starting
Yeah.
fully.
Oh, that's not the sky. That's the reflection.
Correct. You thought that it was, you thought that,
Slightly lighter darkness.
I heard that the moon tonight's supposed to be amazing. It's like, it was in the news. So, we'll check that out. That'll make me feel better for being here after night.
Yeah.
I've started until night last.
Were you? Yeah, let's get out of here.
Okay.
Does that word? I thought that was good. I was worried that you wanted me to say, "Here is the laws," and
I don't know what I wanted you to say, but you let AI generate a bunch of notes here, which I could tell because I could see AI is fun. And I was like, okay, at least Ryan didn't sit down and write all these himself. But I got to let you know, Jim, that Ryan did write a Crip Campus carol for a holiday edition that we may have at some point in the future. He actually wrote like a "'Twas a Night Before Finals."
Are we going to have to do a harmony here? Is that what happened? Or is it? Oh, it's
going to be a future episode.
Okay, it's just a story.
Oh yeah, because you did say carol. Yeah, right.
Right, like Christmas Carol, like the story.
Yeah. Okay, I got.
Like by Dickens. Okay, yeah.
Because I'd have to figure out, do I do baritone? Or do I do?
Well, I'm gonna make sound, and then you try to you figure out what works best.
My pitch.
And then we're gonna. Okay.
But yeah, and I tried to show what I wrote versus what was AI, because I've been using AI for almost everything, just as a starting point.
Yeah, we're gonna have an AI episode where 2 AIs do a podcast, because that's like a button you can push now. I learned. And then
the worst thing is that I can have the AI review the transcripts for all previous podcasts, and I can clone both of your voices, so I can have the AI.
Actually, could you just do that? Because it sounds like it'd be easier than us meeting here for 1 hour, but less fun.
We've got to give it more grist for the mill, I think.
So let's record like 8 episodes and then tell it to start.
Just let it do its own thing, and you won't have to worry about it at all.
Get fuller and full. It changes the title screen, right? It makes yours.
I love this better.
Could you?
I still haven't shown you the horror stories that I got.
Really, from trying to make our images. Yeah.
There's when you wanted me to adjust your lips, and I was trying to give it different prompts. It was.
Was it some clown stuff? Or
it was some serious.
Wait, really?
I'm not interested in. Well, it's like Uncanny Valley already. Yeah. And so then to just tweak that even a little bit, because it gave you the proportions that it thought this sexy lady should have or whatever. And so when you try to change that, it's probably all out of proportion, like way more Uncanny Valley than we would want.
I've only ever just used Adam to make PowerPoints. Jeez.
Yeah, you're kind of behind the times.
Yeah, I know you can do more than that, but I thought I was being fancy.
Yeah, I have an AI group that I'm hosting tomorrow that I made the slide deck with AI, and it was way better than what I was going to ask. Yeah. So I'm going to tell them that, and then just be like, all right, well, I have to be here because an AI can't so far turn on the lights and like get the coffee ready or whatever.
But no, not yet.
Not yet.
I wanted to get, I'm really interested in stand-up comedy.
Okay.
And so I threw in a bunch of published stuff that I've written. I said, "This is."
Oh, you want to do stand-up?
I want to do research on stand-up comedy. With scholarship.
Okay.
So I just said, "Look, here's 5 articles. I don't have that. Here's all the articles I wrote. Here's what I write about. Here's how I write.
Oh.
I want to write about stand-up comedy. Here's 4 comedians
that you like. Okay.
And it started, and I'm like, okay, that's not good enough, and it's not, but now I can go in and really start.
That's great. I had it write a eulogy. That was the very first thing that I had it do for me. And it said, she died doing what she loved, reading a book. Which is what I want to be on my, what's people to say about me. Because it just asked, well, I don't know, tell me about yourself. So I was just like, I mostly just read books. And then sometimes I could do other stuff. And so that's all I could come up with. And that sounds great. I mean, I hope I get to the part that I'm like looking for.
I'm just imagine the ghosts who are just haunting the people reading that same book. And like, get to page 80.
And then I'll die. It's like The Ring or something. Like if you look at it, then you die or something.
That's the papers. What?
These are some papers.
Okay.
I just printed some things on them. You don't know them.
Feel free to add to the carol.
Okay, I will. We will. So Jim changed the settings on our YouTube channel now, so anyone can search for Crip Campus. Nobody has to have the link or anything as of like right before you got here. And so so now you can share it more widely.
Well, so I looked at my schedule. I said, oh, it's got me Monday through Friday, but really Thursday. Monday through Thursday, 12 to 12:50, teaching a class. Okay. And then 1 to 3:20 every day, teaching class. So I reached out. Yeah. So, and one is in honors and two are in disability studies. So I reached out to Natalia for honors and I reached out to Chris Babcock for disability studies.
Right.
And I'm emailing you both. Look, I don't want to change the schedule, but I want to be thoughtful about it. I need to shut down the room, get to the next room, start it up in 10 minutes. It's going to be winter. Can we maybe have the room be the same room?
Yeah.
And Natalia said, wrote back and said, I'll put a note in. And Chris wrote back and said, I'll put a note in, but you should really reach out to HR and make it an accommodation thing. So I did.
Yeah.
And I said, this seems kind of like real overkill. It's not an access
like a
thing.
scheduling guy to approve it. Yeah.
And I was very clear about that. I said that to them. I said that to Catherine.
Yeah.
I said, this is a scheduling thing. It's not an accommodation thing.
Yeah.
And the HR person said, yeah, but if you want it to happen,
you have to say it's an accommodation. So if I had the exact same dilemma with needing to shut something down, having nothing to do with the disability, I just don't feel like walking to another building in 10 minutes and eat my lunch on the way or whatever.
Yeah.
They would tell me it's not possible at all unless I become disabled in a way which makes it difficult. Yeah. In which case, fill out this form.
Yeah. And I did.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I said, yeah, here's why this would make it harder. But it's really, isn't it? What?
I hear you. It's a little bit weird. I think they're just sort of like, And then maybe that's what losing 504 will make us lose. Right. You can no longer say it's an accommodation. Now you're just some guy and you're competing against me for the room or whatever.
That's how it used to be.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I wouldn't go back to that.
But was it? No, I can't keep talking.
Well, you know what the music means.